I know what you really want. How do I know that? Because it's what every human being wants, and that is happiness. It's the reason I got into spirituality, and probably the reason that you got into it as well. You felt a level of unhappiness with your current circumstances, and you'd maybe tried to go out into the world to solve that. I know I did. I tried various different things: substances, relationships, making a ton of money, being successful in sport, all these different things I tried. And even though I reached the pinnacle in some of these things, it was never enough. I never felt a lasting happiness. If anything, it was just momentary. And sometimes it wasn't even that. And that made me question the whole framework on which the world is built and society is built, which is if you get enough stuff, or if you get enough experiences or relationships or substances or money, that it will fulfill you. It will give you the happiness that you seek. It didn't work for me, and I'm sure you've realized that it doesn't work for you either, and you've probably seen through the illusion. So if what you truly seek is happiness and the world can't provide it, why is that, firstly, and what's the solution? Well, firstly, let's explore why it doesn't work. You see, you've probably recognized this yourself, but whenever you fulfill a desire, you do get a sense of relief, and it almost feels as if fulfilling that desire led to that relief and that release of feeling happy. So whether it's just a simple desire to, eat chocolate, or a desire to go to a new country or whatever, whenever that thing actually happens, you feel momentarily happy. But there's a clue here, because you'll know that it's not the getting of the thing that has caused the happiness. Because if it was the getting of the thing that had caused the happiness, that happiness would remain after you'd got it, right? Because now you've got the thing. But it doesn't, does it? The happiness fades very, very quickly. Another clue that fulfilling desires and getting stuff is not working and why it's not working, another clue is the fact that you've probably done these things before. Like you desire something, but you desire something you've already had before. And it didn't work for you last time, because here you are back again desiring the same thing again. Now, there's nothing wrong with these desires and wanting to, desiring chocolate or a glass of wine or to travel to a new country. That's not the problem here. That's not the issue. The issue is that we seek these things out initially because we feel that fulfilling them is going to give us lasting happiness. But it never does. But we seem never to learn. So where is all that coming from? Well, the happiness that you experience temporarily when you fulfill a desire is not because of the thing that you got. It was actually because it stopped the desire. Because in that moment, there is no desire. So it's really that desireless state that lets you see the happiness. And if you think of the state as a lake, you're constantly zooming around the lake in a speedboat looking for happiness or calm, right? And as you zoom around the lake in the speedboat looking for peace and calm, of course there is no peace and calm because you're zooming around and creating ripples. But when that desire has been fulfilled, temporarily the speedboat stops. You're no longer looking for anything. There's no longer any seeking going on at all. And that's when the happiness, the true nature of what you actually are, which is happiness or peace, arises. So it's not a state that's created, it's actually the underlying reality of what you are. But it's only experienced as a temporary sensation because we're constantly zooming around in the speedboat looking to find it, right? So this idea that the object fulfills the desire is just wrong. It's not correct. That feeling of happiness when a desire has been fulfilled is because there is no desire at that moment. But very shortly afterwards, guess what? A new desire fills into its place, and that sense of happiness is gone because the ripples are now covering up the calmness. That speedboat is off once again, looking for happiness. It doesn't work. You know this. You've probably tried it in all different areas of your life. So you turn to spirituality to try and satisfy that. Now, where do these desires even come from in the first place? Well, they come from a sense of lack. There's two inherent problems that are driven by the mind. In case you don't know this already, I'm sure you do, but the mind is not you. That little voice in your head that talks away and says, you need this, I want this, do this, you're not good enough, you're not great enough, that person's got more, keep up with them, blah, blah, blah. That voice is not you because you're watching it. Okay, you're watching that. You see that. You don't ask for all the stuff that the mind creates. It does it regardless. Sometimes it comes up with all kinds of crazy stuff. You didn't control that. The mind is doing that. Okay, it's the mind that's actually creating all of that. So these desires come from a sense of lack, two things, a sense of lack and a fear of death. And these two problems create all the suffering in the world. Every single aspect of suffering is based on a sense of lack and fear of death. And they come from the mind. Now, if we dive a little bit deeper into that, the sense of lack and the fear of death are based on the mind's belief that it is a separate entity, that it is a separate person, that there's the world, there's the universe out there, and there's this body and this mind here operating within it, separate to it, moving in it. And because the mind feels it's separate and it's constantly trying to reinforce itself, it has this constant fear of death. Now, it may not always be something that you're aware of, but you know that it's there. It drives your decisions. And there's this sense of lack. Nothing is ever enough for the mind. And again, you can quantify this by fulfilling those desires. Okay, that's great temporarily for a few seconds or minutes. And then the mind is like, yep, but it wasn't quite good enough. Let's go out and get more. Let's do more, find more, experience more. So it's literally the arguing with reality, the arguing with what actually is what causes all the suffering. This idea that you lack anything ever causes the suffering, because that then leads to actions which lead to zooming around the lake of peace, disturbing it all up, feeling like you have to go somewhere and do something, that you don't have something that you need. But the very peace and happiness that you seek is being disturbed by your going out and trying to find it, which is ironic. It's a paradox. So this sense of lack and this fear of death are the two driving forces behind all suffering, and why most people don't feel anything but the merest glimpses of happiness. So that's why this is happening. Now let's talk about the solution. Now the solution is terrifyingly simple. It's both terrifying and simple. And it's merely seeing through the illusion that you are a separate self. Recognizing that there is only all that there is. And it's very difficult for me to explain this clearly without people thinking I'm making some kind of metaphor or being mystic or whatever. Literally, everything that is all that there is. Let's just call that thing all that there is. It's also known as spirit, consciousness, awareness, God, universe. Let's just call it all that there is. Now, this all that there is the only thing that there is. There are no other things. There are no separate things within all that there is. There is just all that there is. Now, you might say, well, actually, no, I'm a person. I'm a person in all that there is. That's incorrect. That's an incorrect understanding. You are all that there is. You've called yourself a person because the mind has created this sense of lack and this fear of death, and it has divided all that there is into the world over there, person here, named person here, ego here. there is no separation. All that there is does not know anything of the individual components that the mind creates out of all that there is. So if we call it consciousness, consciousness is all that there is. You are consciousness. I am consciousness. YouTube is consciousness. The planet is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. There's no separation. There's no separate things within that. And a simple experiment, again, is to try and take any one of those things outside of all that there is. There cannot be anything that's outside of all that there is. It's impossible, because all that there is contains all that there is. So when it's realized that you are not a person, that you are merely all that there is, and everything is that, and you are also that, and literally as you look outside, you're looking at yourself, as you see what you used to call a tree, which you realize is not separate, because it cannot be separate to all that there is. It cannot exist or be sustained separate to all that there is. You realize that you are everything, and everything is you. Now, when you realize this, maybe you've not realized this yet, or you've not fully experienced that or sensed that, but even if you get this intellectually, when you realize you are everything, you cannot lack anything. And when you realize you are everything and you are all that there is, you realize there is no death. You were never born. All that there is was never born. It has always been and will always be. Never born and will never die. So when you realize you are all that there is, and that is all that there is, and that you were never born and you will never die, the sense of lack is gone, because you are everything. How could you need or want anything? You are everything. And the fear of death is instantly removed, because what you truly are never dies. And therefore, there is no seeking, there's no zooming out, looking for fulfillment of that lack. The speedboat stops, and it realizes the calm lake has been its true nature all along. And its activity of seeking and looking for something it felt it lacked, even though all along it's always been all that there is. It's never been anything other than all that there is. Realizing this or seeing this doesn't change anything. It merely removes what you never were, which is a separate person. You've always been this. And when it's realized, the seeking, the action, and the zooming around in the speedboat, disturbing the peaceful happiness that you are, stops. So your search for happiness is preventing you from realizing you are happiness.